The drama surrounding this fight wasn't built on chaos or last-minute hype. It was rooted in something deeper, something quieter, almost inevitable. Two fighters, shaped by entirely different journeys, stepping into the same ring with very different purposes. For Danny Swift Garcia, this was about reaffirmation, about reminding the world of who he was at the elite level. For Ivan Redkach, it was about disruption, about proving that he could rise beyond the role of a dangerous outsider and become something more. And from the very first bell, it became clear that while both men had come prepared, only one of them was truly in control of the narrative. The opening moments carried a certain tension that only high-level boxing can create. There was no wild rush, no reckless exchanges, just a slow, deliberate feeling-out process that hinted at something more calculated beneath the surface. Garcia stood composed, almost statuesque, his posture relaxed but alert, eyes fixed on his opponent as if already reading the ending of a story that hadn't yet unfolded. Redkach, by contrast, carried a restless energy. He moved more, twitched more, tested more. It was as if he was trying to disrupt the rhythm before it could even settle. But in doing so, he revealed something crucial. He was searching, and searching is dangerous when your opponent already knows what he's looking for. Redkach came out busier in the early exchanges, probing to the body, flicking out punches, trying to establish a pace that might favor his aggression. His corner had made it clear they didn't want a slow fight. They believed speed and activity could tilt the balance in their favor, but activity without precision can quickly become desperation, and Garcia understood that better than anyone. He didn't match Redkach's output. He didn't need to. Instead, he waited, watched, and when the moment came, he answered with something far more meaningful, a clean, sharp right hand that landed with authority. That right hand became a theme almost immediately. It wasn't just a punch, it was a message. Every time Redkach moved in, every time he extended himself just a little too far, Garcia was there, timing him, catching him, reminding him that every mistake would come with a cost. And while Redkach tried to mask the impact, sticking out his tongue, playing to the crowd, attempting to project confidence, the reality inside the ring told a different story. Garcia's approach was methodical, almost clinical. He wasn't chasing a knockout, not early. He was building something, piece by piece, round by round. A right hand here, a left hook there. Then a subtle shift downstairs, digging into the body, testing the foundation of Redkach's resilience. It was the kind of strategy that doesn't always excite casual viewers, but for those who understand the craft, it was mesmerizing. This wasn't just fighting, it was controlled dismantling. By the second and third rounds, the contrast between the two fighters had become more pronounced. Redkach was still trying, still pushing forward, but there was a growing hesitation in his movements. He would throw, but not always with conviction. He would step in, but often without a clear follow-up. And each time, Garcia capitalized. His counters were sharp, precise, and perfectly timed, often landing just as Redkach thought he had created an opening. There's a psychological element to boxing that often goes unnoticed, and Garcia was mastering it in real time. He wasn't just landing punches, he was planting doubt. Every missed shot by Redkach, every counter he absorbed, added another layer of hesitation. And hesitation in a sport like this is the beginning of unraveling. In the corner, Angel Garcia's voice cut through the noise with clarity. Target the body, stay disciplined, don't rush. And Danny listened, executing the plan with a level of focus that spoke to his experience. The body shots began to accumulate, not always dramatic, not always visible in the moment, but undeniably effective. Each one chipped away at Redkach's energy, his mobility, his ability to sustain the pace he had hoped to impose. By the middle rounds, the fight had settled into a rhythm that felt almost one-sided, though not in an obvious, explosive way. There were no knockdowns, no moments of sudden chaos. Instead, there was a steady, relentless control from Garcia. He dictated the distance, controlled the tempo, and most importantly, chose when and how the exchanges happened. Redkach was reacting more than acting, and that's a position no fighter wants to be in. Still, to his credit, Redkach didn't fold. There were flashes, brief, flickering moments where he showed the grit that had defined his career. A sharp uppercut here, a quick combination there. At times, he even managed to back Garcia up momentarily, landing shots to the body that hinted at what might have been if the fight had taken a different shape. But those moments were just that. Moments. They lacked the consistency needed to shift the momentum in any meaningful way. Garcia's defense played a crucial role in maintaining his dominance. He wasn't just standing there absorbing shots. He was blocking, slipping, and most importantly, countering. His ability to turn defense into offense was one of the defining features of the fight. Redkach would throw, and before he could reset, Garcia would respond with something cleaner, something sharper, something that reminded everyone watching who was in control. As the rounds progressed, the physical toll on Redkach became more visible. A cut began to form, swelling started to build, and his face slowly transformed into a map of the punishment he had endured. Yet even then, he refused to back down completely. He continued to come forward, continued to throw, continued to search for an opening that never quite appeared. There was a moment in the later rounds where Redkach tried to change the narrative, even if only for a brief stretch. He increased his activity, landed a few solid body shots, and for a second, it felt like the fight might shift. The crowd responded, sensing the possibility of drama. But Garcia remained unfazed. He adjusted, tightened his defense, and resumed control with the same calm precision that had defined his performance from the start. What stood out most about Garcia's performance was not just his skill, but his composure. There was no panic, no urgency, no sense that he needed to prove anything beyond what he was already showing. He understood the fight. He understood his opponent. And most importantly, he understood himself. That level of awareness is rare, even at the highest levels of the sport. By the championship rounds, the outcome felt all but certain. Redkach, though still standing, was no longer a real threat. His punches lacked the snap they once had, his movements were slower, and the confidence that had defined his early approach had been replaced by something closer to survival. Garcia, meanwhile, looked as steady as ever, continuing to land clean shots, continuing to control the pace, continuing to build a performance that left no room for doubt. There was an interesting restraint in Garcia's approach as the fight neared its conclusion. He could have pressed harder, taken more risks, chased the knockout, but he didn't. Instead, he chose control. He chose to finish what he had started in the same manner he had begun, calm, precise, and disciplined. It was a decision that spoke volumes about his mindset. This wasn't about spectacle, it was about mastery. The final bell rang not with an explosion, but with a sense of closure. 12 rounds had passed, and the story they told was clear. Garcia had dominated, not through overwhelming force, but through superior skill, strategy, and composure. Redkach had shown heart, resilience, and moments of bravery, but he had been outclassed. When the scorecards were read, there was no surprise. The judges saw what everyone had seen, a unanimous decision in favor of Danny Garcia. Wide margins that reflected the consistency of his performance. It wasn't just a win, it was a statement. For Garcia, this fight served as a reminder of his place in the division, a demonstration of his ability to control a fight from start to finish, to execute a game plan with precision, and to maintain composure under pressure. It reinforced the idea that he remains a serious contender, capable of competing at the highest level. For Redkach, the night was more complicated. There was disappointment, certainly, but also a measure of respect. He had gone the distance with a top-tier opponent. He had shown toughness, refusing to be stopped, refusing to quit. But he had also been reminded of the gap that still exists between him and the elite. As the arena lights dimmed and the crowd began to disperse, the fight lingered in the minds of those who had watched it closely. Not as a dramatic knockout or a chaotic war, but as something more subtle, more refined. A lesson in control.